Michael, could you please record?
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Good morning and welcome. This meeting is being held on Thursday, March 7th, 2024. The meeting of the Sweetwater Authority Board of Directors is called to order. Board members and members of the public may attend in person. Additionally, some board members may attend the meeting virtually, but that's not the case today. At the convenience to the public, the authority provides a call-in option, internet-based option for members of the public to virtually observe and provide public comments at its meeting. Instructions for virtual observation and participation were included in the agenda. Members of the public attending the meeting in person may submit a public comment slip and submit it to the board chair or secretary prior to the start of an agenda item. Members of the public attending virtually via the Zoom webinar or call-in option may also make public comments on an agenda item during the meeting by raising their hand via Zoom webinar, by clicking on the raise hand button, and via phone by pressing star 9. Please note that in the event of a disruption in the call-in or internet-based option for observing and/or participating in this meeting, the meeting will continue unless a director has attended the meeting virtually pursuant to certain provisions of the Brown Act. Prior to proceeding to call roll, I would like to make sure that directors can hear me. They're all here. There's no one virtual. And we're gonna now proceed with roll call.
Director Calderon Scott, here. Director Castañeda is absent. Director Delgado,
Here.
Director Martinez,
Here.
Director Martinez Perez,
Here.
Director Morrison, Director Yamani.
Here.
Thank you.
With that, we're gonna proceed with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Director Delgado, could you do us the honor? Thank you so much, Director Delgado. Now we're going to get to the good stuff. Strategic Planning Workshop. This is the opportunity for members of the public to speak on item 3. Board Secretary, are there any public comments?
We have no public comments, Chair.
Thank you. I will defer to General Manager Quintero.
Thank you, Chair. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank all of you for being here this morning. This has been a workshop that has been on the books for quite some time, and I think we're at least me, very personally excited to really have this dialogue with all of you and trying to set our plan, our goals, and objectives for the next fiscal year. I know that we do a lot of really exciting things at the authority, and it's always good to get feedback and direction on specific items from the board. Just what we've done is, well, certainly we have all the department heads here today to help guide this process. Our current strategic plan has 7 goals and 54 objectives. And we hope to really go through most of them today, or really all of them today, time permitting, or as long as you like to be here. And I think at the end of the day, what would be nice is to do an assessment of what we have and really trying to get, clarity on some of these objectives, or add a few, take a few away. It's really going to be up to you to tell us what you like to see. You have in front of you a little booklet that has the current goals and objectives. We allowed a little bit of space so you could take notes as we have this discussion. But how this is going to work, we have Andy Pendoli here who's going to help us facilitate the process. But we'll go through, if it's okay, through goal number 1, and then you'll get a sense of what the specific objectives are. Staff did work on mostly clarifying some of the existing objectives and maybe doing a little bit of language cleanup, so we can go over those proposals as well if you like, as a starting point. But again, I think it would be good to look at this with an open mind and really provide us any feedback or direction that you might want. At the end of the day, we'll take all your feedback and we'll use it to develop a detailed work plan that will be brought back to the board at a future date for your consideration. Roberto, anything? I really thank Roberto for taking the lead on a lot of these, coordinating all these input and all that. I don't know, Roberto, anything to add?
No, just that we're very excited to listen and to understand uh, the priorities and objectives that the board has, so we can come and develop a good plan. Sorry, just sorry. Very excited to listen and understand the priorities the board has, and excited to be part of this process.
So, any comments at this point, Chair, or?
I'd just like to thank everybody for making it today. I mean, it's a regular work day, huh, for everybody, but I just want to make sure that we all just come in here and are ready to work together and to think about the objectives of the authority as a whole. Some of us have been here for a very long time, and some of us are, new to the authority. But whatever our history is here, it's an opportunity for us to collaborate and to just, brainstorm about where we want to head and how to work together to get us there. We are scheduled until 1 p.m., but as the general manager mentioned, if we need to extend, we can, or if we need to, come with fresh eyes for a second time, we definitely can. So let's not, let's be productive, but also let's not have time be a constraint into this very important work. So with that, I think we're ready.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to now turn it over to Andy, our facilitator, to go over the process and provide any further remarks.
Thank you very much. Chair Martinez Perez, all of the governing board members, thank you all for having me. I appreciate the staff bringing me back. My name is Andy Pindoli. I am a strategic planning and facilitation consultant. I work with a lot of public agencies here in our region, San Diego, and frankly across Southern California. A lot of projects like strategic plans, work plans, as we're talking about here today, as well as broader community engagement efforts. So I've been honored to, I've lived here in our region here for over 20 years. So I'm happy to be back. And one of the longest standing, kind of efforts that I've always come back to, I've been honored to come back to, is actually working with you all as the authority. Your first strategic plan, that's the basis of this work plan, I was privileged to be part of that process. So I'm happy to be back here, and I've had a couple of occasions to come back and help facilitate conversations like today. So thank you again for having me. So my role today is really to help us work through our agenda, and I appreciate what the chair said. We want to work through in a methodical way, not be rushed, but also be thoughtful about our time today, your time, being respectful of your time overall. So I'll be helping in that regard to track time. I do know we have lunch coming in at a certain point, so we'll work to find a good pause point to make sure we don't have any grumbling tummies, right, as the case may be. We can do that. But mostly my role here is to really help engage conversation with all of you, as the chair mentioned, is really conversational, thinking through, first of all, not just recent accomplishment. I'm going to start our conversation today talking about accomplishment of the authority in this kind of current fiscal year and in recent years, ramping up to help kind of think about where are we today. Today really is a step back point, if you will, kind of a little more of that, what do they say, 30,000 foot view to think about where are we today and what do we see as our path forward. And we'll look at that path forward in the context of your objectives as they currently are standing, and some initial potential recommendations that your staff are bringing forward for some initial reflection from you, but if not, most importantly, hearing your ideas about additional ideas, priorities that maybe are not on the table, as they say, that you'd like to open up. And as the chair mentioned, that have some dialogue and discussion on that today. Just also to confirm kind of protocol, I don't think we're requesting any specific action today from the board. Again, it is really more about, discussion, being discussion oriented and hearing from each of you and being conversational in that way. And yes, as Carlos mentioned, a great workbook put together by the staff. Hopefully you find it helpful, not just for today's purposes, but perhaps in the coming weeks and months as we move towards a final draft work plan for the next fiscal year and budget. And hopefully that's a tool that helps you along the way there. So good. Any questions of me on our agenda? Oh, excuse me, let me say a little more specifically on the agenda we have shown here. Again, first, briefly would like to review some highlights of accomplishment. Your department heads and executive team will go through a few of those relatively briefly. Would like to open up to hear from all of you, your perspectives on accomplishments so far. But then the bulk of our time, as you see as item E there, is starting to look more closely at, again, the objectives we have today, what might be some potential refinement to objectives moving ahead into the next fiscal, just initial ideas that we wanted to engage you on. And again, importantly, diving in with you about exploring those, talking about what you feel you might want to make sure is included, additional ideas that you'd like staff to go back and work through a little bit for you. And then we'll talk about next steps and wrapping up. And as again, from a time perspective, as the chair mentioned, we were thinking about a 1 o'clock endpoint. We'll certainly be flexible and given the momentum of the group as the case may be, and again, just sensitivity to the rest of your day. So there any questions of me just before we get? Yes, Director Calderon.
Yeah. I was hoping to get an overview from management on where we are now and what you see as the priorities to kind of give us, like the higher priority projects and initiatives to, before we got into the actual goals, so that we have that, in mind as to what you see. Are the high priorities. That's been sort of what we've had in the past. And then we've added our own themes of projects, like individually that we may be interested in. So that's sort of what I had expected. Can we get a bit of that?
Yeah, certainly, Director Alonso. So the idea was to have the department heads come in and talk about the accomplishments. And at the same time, they can talk about what the priorities are within their department. I think that will be important. And that will hopefully address your question.
Yeah.
So we can, as we move to the agenda item or letter C, we can address your question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, before we get into the details of objectives, we absolutely want to hear your perspective again, where we are today after hearing from staff and your thoughts about kind of what speaks to kind of the path forward. So absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm
Please, Director Martinez.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank staff or whoever is responsible for doing this. This document has all the highlights and all the projects that we're working on. I know all of them are important. I know that you're working on all of them, but I just want to thank staff for doing such a great job in producing this document. And it's going to serve us well today and in the future.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
Yeah.
Of course. So let's. So this is just for us to take notes, and I'm gonna ask everybody to trust the process, and let's get started.
Yeah, we will absolutely. It is a workbook. Yes, very much emblematic of today. Just kind of working through ideas, hearing. Yeah, certainly. So thank you for those questions and clarifications in that comment. I appreciate that. One other thing, I will take some high-level notes, as you probably gathered from behind me as we're having the conversation. This does not supersede your standard recording procedures, of course, as part of your board meeting. So, but just as a way, as a working session, we can kind of have our collective eyes on emerging ideas and comments. So, good. With that, let me go ahead and move into things. I think I have control of the slides here, and we'll start very briefly to hear about some highlights of water quality, and we'll hear from our first director to speak to that. And then, and if you'll bear with me, what I'd like to do is ask each director to kind of walk through some highlights of their respective departments, and then I'd like to open it up, and we can certainly come back and forth and answer questions about the state of accomplishment. Please. All right, Justin.
Great. So for the Water Quality Department, one accomplishment we're very proud of and we know is of high importance to the authority is our utilization or maximization of our local water resources. So for the first 6 months of the current fiscal year, 95% of the water that we provided to our customers was local. And of that, 62% was surface water from Sweetwater Reservoir. So, very fortunate, of course, to get all the rains and wet winters we have, but we're also very fortunate and proud for the fact that we've been able to maximize that. Full compliance with all state and federal drinking water and Clean Water Act regulations, and there's a lot as a water provider that we have to follow to stay in that full compliance. Our water quality laboratory. So for many years, we've been working through a process to come into compliance with new federal laboratory standards that were adopted by the state of California. They're very stringent. They're very comprehensive. And we're really close. Actually, we have our official audit for those standards next week. So we're really proud to get to the point where we are with that right now. Also, in the laboratory succession planning. So there's been a lot of change in staffing in the laboratory over the past few years, and even more recently, you may recall our water quality manager retired. So we spent about a year, maybe a little longer, doing training with the staff in the lab on all the compliance that's required, and including the regulatory reports that we have to provide to a number of agencies. So all in all, in the Water Quality Department, we produce over 20 regulatory reports to various agencies throughout the year. And those are important for demonstrating that we're meeting all the regulatory requirements, we're providing safe drinking water. But those reports, of course, they have to be complete, accurate, and submitted on time to prevent the authority from getting any types of violations. So we're very proud of that, and that we put a plan in place to make sure that we can be successful now and also going into the future. Our laboratory information management system, this is something that the board approved last fiscal year, and we're still in the process of implementing. But essentially what we're doing is we're going from decades of legacy Excel databases where we store our data and moving it into a more modern SQL Server type system. Not only does this help us meet the new accreditation standards for quality control, makes data more accessible for us, and in the future we may even be able to streamline and automate to some extent some of the reports that we produce. Far as things for sorry.
Anything else? Go ahead.
No, that was it for that slide. And then just initiatives that we were thinking of for the following fiscal year, if you wanted me to speak to that. Oh, I see there's a three. So we are going to be looking at performing potentially an initial study for the for chloride rehabilitation or replacement at the Purdue Water Treatment Plant. This is something that was studied at a higher level in the 2022 Purdue Master Plan that was completed by Crowell Engineering. We're also looking at more ways to continue maximizing the utilization of local water resources. And sometimes we do run into challenging water quality in Sweetwater Reservoir that causes us to have to purchase imported water for a variety of reasons. We're looking at installing or recommending installation of a residual control system in our Bonita Valley Reservoir, which is our largest reservoir in the system. What the system does is it maintains water quality intermediary, basically halfway through our system. We can resume and basically reboot water quality at that intermediary point, such that when the water leaves that reservoir, it's leaving such as like it was just leaving the water treatment plant. And so we very successfully installed one of those at the O.D. Arnold tank in National City a few years ago. Prior to installing that system, the 5 years leading up to that point, we had to drain the tank multiple times. I believe it was 19 million gallons of water in total because of water quality problems. We haven't drained the tank one time since we've had that system running for a few years now. So very successful there. Now we'd like to apply that to a bigger reservoir that will have bigger overall system impact. And also we're going to be looking at funding opportunities and doing a study to maximize usage and for rehabilitation of our urban runoff diversion system, which of course also has a very important water quality connection, because the URDs not only allows us to capture water that we don't want to enter the reservoir, but it also allows us to transition the system to capture the water when we want the runoff to go into the reservoir. So that system was originally built in the 1990s, and it's time to take a comprehensive look at that and make sure that we have everything working the way that we want it to work. And with that, I'll hand it to
We'll go to administrative services.
Well, as the newest department director, admin services, I took over the department in September, which I've been really grateful for. I have a great team in place, and had a lot of exciting initiatives that were underway before I even moved over from public affairs. So some of the things that we have going on right now is we've started our facilities master plan. We've actually been out this week doing our site inspections of all of our facilities. This is the first plan of its kind for the agency, so we're really looking forward to having that put together. That will be presented to the board later this spring once completed. And this will be really helpful for us moving forward in the future years to look at our budget, how we prioritize repairs, or any sort of maintenance that we need to have conducted at our facilities. We're also in progress on our AMI feasibility study. We're working with a consultant on that. The plan is to bring that to the committee in April, Finance and Administration Committee. We'll be seeing a presentation on that in the full board after it's gone to committee, and looking forward to, again, how we can work that into the planning next year as well.
So AMI stands for
automated meter infrastructure.
Thank you. Sorry to put you up.
That's okay. I'm glad I answered it correctly. And then we also started our record management project. So earlier this summer, we were able to bring a new staff person who's helping the authority with record management. We are looking at right now, we have an RFP out for purchasing software to help us convert our files throughout the organization to an electronic format. This will make it easier for staff, but also easier for public accessibility to have a directory on our website and ways for people to get information for us without having to go through a public records request. So we are working on the policies to accompany that, the retention schedule. It's a very heavy lift for the organization, but will be really good for us to have all the files in a concise location for the authority moving forward. And then, as we mentioned already, Justin mentioned a few retirements. We have more coming up this year. We're really being strategic about our recruitment and marketing. Over the next few weeks and months, we'll be attending a lot more career fairs, trying to get ourselves out into different places to promote and recruit some more top employees to join our team here at the authority. And as far as some of the ideas that we're looking towards for next year, kind of to go along with recruitment and marketing is organizational analysis and succession planning. We are in the midst of the silver tsunami. We have a lot of retirements coming up in the years to come, making sure that we're prepared for those vacancies as they come through the organization. We also are going to be working with the board on AMI implementation. Once we've received the study, what does this mean for us as an organization? What will steps look for us looking forward? And same thing with the facilities master plan, how we're going to be taking that plan forward to the organization, and again, working with the board through budget and processes to prioritize those repairs to facilities. And the record management software that will be in place by next year. So working through the implementation schedule, getting that together with all the departments. We don't know yet. We're out for bid right now. Yeah, so the RFP is out right now. I believe it closes on March 20th. So we'll be coming back to the board later this spring with those RFPs for consideration. So I'm not sure of the name yet, but we have seen a couple of different demos and there's some great products out there. It's just a matter of how those folks come back to us. And lastly, on the HR side, continuing the recruitment, but also looking at how we can enhance diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging training for our staff and for our employees, making sure that we're making that a priority here at the organization. To continue with the good culture that we have in the organization, educating our employees into those endeavors. So I think now it goes.
Thank you. I want to note too, first of all, welcome and acknowledge Director Castaneda. Thank you for being here. Just a quick update for you. We're just giving some highlights of accomplishments so far in this fiscal year from the department heads of the team. And soon we'll pivot to start talking about kind of the path forward here and priorities. So, and I also wanted to acknowledge too that the department has to give you some highlights about the look ahead. We are going to be even more intentional in reviewing with you, literally kind of on screen, more about what those recommendations are. So they're giving you, teasing a little bit with some highlights, but for now, mostly focusing on accomplishments. Good, Rich, please.
Again, glad to be here with the board and everyone this morning. So for finance, which includes both the IS and the accounting section, over this year, our biggest transition was we had a IS manager who'd been here for many, many years retire, and we did promote an internal supervisor to the IS manager position. And then we did hire externally a new IS supervisor who became very qualified. We feel very good about this hire. So that was probably our biggest accomplishment of this year. We did also complete the IS office improvements. The task was initially really for making improvements to our server rooms so we could install fire suppression systems. But then in addition to that, we added, previously all 8 employees in our IS section were spread out over 3 different areas of the building. And so this, by adding, moving a wall, adding another wall, we were able to get them all into one space where they could collaborate and work as a cohesive team and build that team. So I think that is going a long way to building that base for our IS team. The strategic goals that we met this year, or we'll be meeting them at the end of this fiscal year, is we did commence our firewall replacement program. We have purchased all those firewalls and are in the process of deploying them across the microwave system and with the facilities. We did complete our GIS strategic plan this year. And at this point, the GIS strategic plan really focused on getting our current state of our GIS programs up to date and then implementing new tools and applications that employees can use. So the GIS plan is complete. We're actually in the process of updating our software to a modern state. And so next fiscal year, we'll really be working on rolling out applications that can make staff authority-wide more efficient and communicate better with the board about what we're doing as well. And then, as we're well aware, the water rate study that was completed last year. I think this water rate study is the hardest look this board has ever took at looking at the water rates. And I do really appreciate all the assistance and guidance from the board to get through that process. And then also our annual finance, our accounting team, they don't have a lot of new projects. Their main goal is to make sure nothing changes. And so we really focus on that. So our annual audit is really our biggest goal. Looking forward, not only IS, but our accounting area, we have some staffing changes. We're looking at, forming our new accounting team. And then also for next year, we have people in place for our IS department, but we're working on, they need to form that base, create the new normal that they're going to be working toward to successfully, maintain the security of our network systems. So next year really is that for IS is going to be, norming the team. And then also the goal that we're looking at is to update our existing strategic plan for the IS department. So that's going to be the biggest, step for IS next year.
Okay.
And with that, I'm going to pass it on to.
Okay. Move to engineering. I think we have 2 slides, a lot of things to cover. So
It's a larger department, so it requires 2 slides for this. So good morning, everyone. So some of the major accomplishments that I say we have, done in engineering operations is, we have recently awarded 6 projects for construction. You can see the list of projects there on the screen, and combining all those 6 projects, the budget, it's I think somewhat close to about $6 million. So that's a lot of funds that we have been able now to kind of put into construction and spend those monies so that we don't keep carrying those funds in the CIP fund. In addition to those projects, we completed construction of the gasoline underground storage tank replacement. What that is basically a regulatory compliance that basically requires to remove the single wall underground gasoline tank located at our operations yard. Single wall tanks can be prone to leaks. So that way there's regulatory compliance to replace that with a double wall tank. And that new gasoline tank was installed above ground. And we completed construction of that project in December. And just a few days ago, we received some email confirmation from County of San Diego that based on the soil testing that we provided around the tank, that there was no issues with that tank leaking, and therefore we don't require to do any mitigation. We do expect to receive a official letter confirming that later this month. Once we get that, allow us to move that project to close it out and to release any remaining funds back to the CIP fund. In addition to that, on the development services side, yesterday, the engineering operations committee, I gave a presentation on an update on development services. I mentioned how we had approved 66 projects for construction. That was specific from the last update from October to the end of February, but this number is higher, of course, because it's specific to the entire fiscal year, so since July 1st to the end of February. So we have approved 107 projects on development side for construction. Next slide, please. And on the operations side, we have an annual valve replacement program that looks at, replacing old valves that are at the end of the service life, and also valves are no longer working. So for this fiscal year, we had a budget to replace 40 valves and install 5 new ones to provide better system redundancy. We have already completed 35 out of those 45 valves, providing a 75% completion rate on that program. Also, this fiscal year, we started an acoustic detection program. We hired a consultant, EEI, that looked at basically 1/3 of our service area. That initiated in December and was completed in a very short time frame. Out of that program, there was 53 leaks that were identified on combination of water mains, service laterals, and other system appurtenances, and all those leaks have been repaired. And that is really important because we were able to address those leaks before they became a bigger issue, right? Before that, water, caused bigger issues and became more cost to repair. So we were able to address all of those in a timely manner very soon after we got the report from the consultant. On the no discharge flushing program, we obviously restarted that program back in February, so a little bit before the start of the fiscal year, but as it pertains to this fiscal year alone, we have completed 50 miles of water main flushing. That represents 14% of all the water mains we have flushed. We also just completed going through National City in Lincoln Acres. And just recently, we started working in Chula Vista. And all customers in those areas were notified by mailers. And on the fleet side, we have completed 424 preventative maintenance work orders and 163 corrective work orders. And I wanted to highlight that because that's a very high volume of work orders completed, and all that gets done in-house. We don't outsource any of that. It all gets done in-house by a team of 3 people. So that's not an exhaustive list of accomplishments. Just kind of wanted to highlight some of the major ones that I see. As it pertains to kind of major priorities that I see for this department for next fiscal year. We also want to keep complying with any regulations from DSOD as pertains to our dams. As you're aware, we're currently undergoing a comprehensive assessment for Sweetwater Dam. We don't know if DSOD is going to have any new requirements for the additional analysis based on what comes out of that assessment. So we obviously want to keep complying with those requirements from DSOD to make sure that our dams are continue to be safe and up to standards. In addition to that, we obviously want to complete the design of the central leader tank and complete its construction. Recently, the board authorized an expenditure to get some consulting help for design, and we're having weekly progress meeting with that consultant to make sure that we stay on schedule on that project. We want to look at optimizing our desal facility. That facility can theoretically produce up to a maximum of 8,800 acre-feet per year. It has been really hard to push the facility up to its maximum. So we want to do a study, like a feasibility study, to see how we can optimize that facility to continue to maximize our local resources and reduce that dependence on local water. Outside water from the region. And as part of that study, we want to take a look at well 7. That well has been out of commission for some time, so that will be included in that evaluation as well. We do have a tank rehab program, and there's several tanks that they're in design right now that will be moved forward to construction later on. But one of the ones that I see as most critical out of the ones we're addressing is the chlorine contact tank for the desal facility. The other tanks that we're currently designing are for the distribution system, but I see that one as a major priority because that is for a treatment plant. So we want to make sure that we have that tank rehab so we can continue to produce local water. Having said that, there's probably other more initiatives.
We'll have some time to get into. So, well, thank you. Yeah, thank you to the department heads for that overview. And I'd like to turn you now as the board to some reflection on accomplishments. I know there was a little bit of discussion about a look ahead from the department heads. We're going to spend the bulk of our time in a little while talking more deeply about what is coming and some of the things they mentioned. So I'd ask if you would just maybe for now commenting on your sense of accomplishments in this current fiscal year. What's resonating for you? Perhaps there's some accomplishments you didn't hear reflected back from the department heads you'd like to highlight. Or if any questions on the accomplishments, certainly happy to answer any. But Chair Mark, excuse me.
Right. For today's purpose, please, Andy is leading the workshop. So I appreciate everyone looking at me, but let's all look at
it. Opportunity for the chair to participate as well.
Take a back seat today.
Very good. Yes, Director Martinez, please.
First of all, I wanted to say that I'm very happy to see the work that you guys are doing. I feel like we're in really great hands. We live in this community 365 days out of the year. I hear good things in general from my neighbors, from my friends, I see that no discharge or pipe cleaning is in my neighborhood now. I can clean, see them a block away from my house, that makes me feel good. We open up the tap and it's great water. I see some of the projects. I know that there are a lot more projects that you guys are working on. I see some of the projects being worked on. I feel like we're in connection, and I think that doesn't come by accident. I think that's why we're here, right? To continue to be aligned each other, we support you, you make us look good, we give you the tools, right? And we need to have that communication. The communication needs to be clear so that we're not giving you things that you don't need, you know, in general, very pleased. In detail, I heard you, Justin, talk about what you're doing to improve, to rise the water quality level to another point, you know. I heard you mention, you said BVR or the Clearwell?
Bonita Valley Reservoir.
Bonita Valley Reservoir. And what about Justin Tank? I know that was an issue back in the day. Is it still an issue or not?
You know, we have a lot of different ways we have a lot of different ways we manage water quality, and you know, one of those techniques is deep cycling tanks, or you know, managing how we store the water in the tanks. And we've been able to mitigate Judson Tank pretty well by doing that. And plus, we have plenty of additional storage in the system. But when we can maintain water at Bonita Valley Reservoir, that should have a downstream effect to help all other tanks in the system, the southern tanks in Chula Vista, including the Judson tank. So, you know, instead of putting these residual control systems in all these individual tanks, first, now we've demonstrated it at O.D. Arnold National City, which was problematic and separate from the Purdue water treatment plant, really, because it gets a blend from National City wells and desal and Purdue, just depending on the time of the year. But yeah, if we can maintain in Bonita Valley, it should have a very large downstream effect on everything else.
Thank you.
Very much. Thank you, Vice Chair. Director Yamane, your thoughts on accomplishments this year?
Thank you. Listening as a freshman, you know, I mean, going on my second year, I know that I also have learned a lot through my colleagues here, who are very patient in answering my questions, together with our general manager and assistant general manager. I wanted to go one by one. With water quality, Justin, you just feel the passion of how, you know, I mean, he takes ownership of making sure that the water quality is there for our ratepayers and for us to be able to drink. You know, I mean, I wish I can understand more about the chemistry of it, but I will try, Justine. That's my, you know, I mean, how you present it with data and your commitment and your passion to make sure that we understand what you're reporting. Thank you. For administration and administrative services with Leslie's, I think institutional knowledge of the organization. I think, you know, I mean, your outlook of how we're going to move forward with administration and recruitment and community engagement, you know, I mean, I feel that from you. With Rich, you know, my first thing was, okay, he's our money guy, right? He's the heartbeat of our organization, right? Finance. And then I said, okay, /IS, why are they together, right? That's my question first. And so then I look at the organization that, you know, I'm in my former chair here and now vice chair. Got a finance, you know, I mean, guy here and got IS guy here, and he's there looking over. So because of the billing system and all the accounting underlying things that he has to look at, I think those work together, right? And maybe I will have a better understanding, because I want the finance focus on our finance, because again, that's our heartbeat, right?
Good.
And then for engineering, you know, I mean, Eric, you know, I mean, the passion, the commitment, you know, I mean, I'm listening to you and I can cry because of how, you know, I mean, you present it like, I want it fixed. I want it, you know, please, let's rehab this, you know, I mean, I wish I can understand more of how you fix and put in those bolts in order for us to be able to have those tanks and those canal or those facilities are working. But you know how you present it. For me, who's a freshman or who's new in the industry of understanding water. Thank you for being able to make me understand that. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for that feedback. Appreciate that. Kind of open up. Any next director would like to share? Yeah, Chair Martinez. Excuse me.
Thank you. Something I think that, wasn't mentioned, but I know it's going to be mentioned. I think there's been a lot of good work done with trying to improve community relations. And after COVID, right, there's been a lot of events where Sweetwater Authority has been there. We had the Lemon Festival. I know that there was just a national city. I know that we've upped our, social media presence. I know that we've upped just our presence in general in the Chamber of Commerce, trying to work with our developers. So I just think the Sweetwater Authority seems to me that is trying to step out more of, administrative offices and going out there to have a more direct presence in our community. And that's been really, I think, important, because I think one of the things of frustrations that we've had is that a lot of people don't even know that Sweetwater, who are we? What do we do? Who gets our water to them, right? So the more we are out there, the more that our constituents and our ratepayers can know who we are and can, feel good about the wonderful service that they're getting. So I think that's been a big undertaking in the last 2 years. So I think that needs to be mentioned.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Appreciate that. Yes, please, Director Covenant.
I want to pick up on that topic because I do believe we're doing a good job in outreaching the chambers, the business community. I think Leslie has done a very outstanding job, over the last couple of years, even in spite of the strategic plan, where I think we still need to push forward is our outreach to our Latino community. The majority of our ratepayers, I think we're still not reaching, and that's the continued input that I get. And having a bilingual person that could really identify with the community and get out there and find a way, not just working like say throughout the community with nonprofits, but also with the schools. We give so much to the schools through the hydroscape and just get minimal return. I think they've picked it up, but I think that we could really do more in that area. But transparency with community, I think we're getting better, but I think we need to really put some concentrated effort on getting the right information at the right time. Not in the last, I have a difficulty keeping up with all of my board work when I get it one day before, or when I get it the weekend, before the Monday or Wednesday, because I put a lot of time into it. So I think finding solutions.
Where's that compliment back?
Oh,
But
well, I did start off by saying that, right? Yeah. I'm sorry. We did that study. We did the survey. So I'm anxious to we did an excellent survey with an excellent consultant that actually, and that's why I could clearly identify what we need, because we went through that
now we have
study. Yeah, absolutely. But the engineering, Eric, we've come a long way, I think, in the last 2 years to now. And so as we get into the improvements, I have some suggestions, but I really feel that we're in a very good position to now start really looking at the future and filling in the detail.
There's been great progress in things such as better understanding of our community's needs through some of the survey work. And now there's great enthusiasm to now act upon that now that we have a better sense.
Right.
Absolutely. We'll come back
on water quality, I've been pretty pleased all along with the progress and the reporting that they've been making. I think that that's been at a very high level. I was happy to see because we hadn't reached any updates, but that we are now in full compliance on the testing, and we're steady. I believe what I interpreted is that we've set up a system so that it never happens again. That that we miss key testing points.
So kind of that, so more effective compliance levels, we're at compliance,
Yes.
and we now have better backstop for tracking,
Yeah,
maintaining that level.
absolutely.
Great.
And last and very important, particularly in my district, is in the area of the rate. Many of us in my district feel it fell short and we're disappointed. But I'm also very happy with the progress that we did make.
Good.
We did make a bump, and that may keep us out of the courts. But I thought we've come a long way, and I think we're well positioned. Everybody's in the same time frame where they recognize where our shortfalls are.
Mhm.
That looking forward, I think we all really truly, because of the way it's starting to be laid out, I think that there's more transparency to understand the rate.
Good.
and fix it.
So thank you very much. I appreciate the kind of those comments so far, kind of thinking holistically across the
Yeah.
organization. It's helpful to hear from you about where you're seeing those changes. And sometimes there are departments that don't give themselves enough credit collectively for the agency. So it's important to hear that from you. So thank you for that. Director Martinez, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I have a quick question because I think it's really important that we communicate clearly between us
Mhm.
so that we understand each other and then we can collaborate and support staff. So when I hear the word transparency, I don't understand what it means, and I would like some clarification on that if possible. Because I mean, it could have a very negative connotation, like you're hiding, sneaky, or it could be something as simple as better communication. You
Mhm.
know, and I agree with that. But when I see transparency, I get all nervous.
Okay.
You know, so
Uh-huh.
I want to get some clarification on that.
Yeah. So if there, feel free. Director Calderon, I think you
I brought
started it up, so I'll let you start if you'd like to share more about what that means for you. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just better, clear communication that are consistent, so that it doesn't appear that we're leaving anything out. That that we take very serious the information that's being put out and not leave anything out or not add anything, or just be very clear, whether it be on our website, whether it be in our strategic plan, whatever, that we say, when we say fair is different to different people, right? Some people might say, well, that's not, so they're not being transparent or whatever. So it's just coming up with clear. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Is it fair to say that you need to get better at telling us something?
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you. I feel better now.
Good. 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 Very good. Yeah, this is a great example. By the way, great example of
No, I'm
Yeah.
getting nervous,
No, this-
Can I make everyone?
And again, remember, let's trust the process. We're highlight the accomplishments. But yes, Carlos?
Yeah, just as far as accomplishments go, I like to share something that just came to my attention. If it's okay. So we have been working with our federal lobbyists about trying to secure funding for the National City Iron and Manganese Removal System. And in fact, it looks like it made it into the 2024 appropriations bill that will be passed by the House and the Senate by tomorrow's deadline and then signed by President Biden. Oh, they did? Okay, good. Excellent. Yeah, so two more steps and now into sign into law by President Biden, but we'll be receiving $959,750 for this project. So I wanted to bring that to your attention.
Division 1.
So, more to come on that project, but I just thought it was important to mention. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a good job.
I know.
959, 752. Almost $1 million. Let's just round it up.
Same one.
Good timing on the announcement, by the way,
Yeah.
too. Fantastic. Carlos, well done.
And again, well, with that, right, the $750,000, looking at other opportunities. I think I've heard the word grants and grant opportunities more in the last year than the first 3 years that I was on the board. Also the outreach with the our work with Glen Pearl and reaching out to just going up to Sacramento, and then there's a trip to Washington D.C. So like I said, there's a lot of effort going out of this building in order to support our ratepayers. So a lot has happened in the last couple of years that I've been here, and I don't know if it was me,
Clearly.
being perfectly aligned.
Very good.
But yeah, I we're in a good place.
Good. Thank you. Excellent. Well, let me we haven't specifically heard from a couple of you. Director Delgado, can I ask you your reflections here on accomplishments?
Well, it's, to deliver good quality water that's safe and reliable and low cost, there's a lot that goes into it from all the different departments, a lot of coordination. And just with this board alone, there's a lot of synergy. When we go out there and we support these projects and we go after grant funding and we kind of get our name out, So we're not just stuck in southern San Diego County. We're everywhere. Yelling top of our lungs that we want funding for our ratepayers. We have a lot of great projects. We're very unique. So these are all great things, but none of that could happen without the great support of our staff and people that work here and the directors. So that's just my thoughts. Yeah.
Thank you. So great, good working dynamics here among all of you as a board, of course, but of course in collaboration with your staff. So good. It's helpful to hear big picture. You're feeling like in general, good flow and processes, and appreciating too. We continue to explore ways to improve and enhance and meet your needs, specifically your community members' needs, through things such as how you've elevated reporting and transparency, and how we continue to think about what progressive community engagement looks like. So, but more to come. So good, Director Morrison, thank you.
Yeah, a couple things. As I'm listening to staff and some of the accomplishments and what we're looking at doing, it's easy to go one way or another, either to get caught up in what we have to do with maintenance and what we've always do and just doing the basics, and then we don't reach out and do the new things that need to be done, and approaching things in different directions, looking at new projects. And then the other deal is where we spend all of our time going after grants, whether if they are, we chase the money sometimes instead of chasing the project. And then also, we're trying to do new things, and the maintenance of doing the things that need to be done every day gets left behind. And then when we get behind on that, then we end up with problems down the road. What I'm hearing is a good balance, and I think that's what we need to strike.
If I may, I want to hear a little bit more, but I'll dare say, because I've had some iterative occasions to come back and engage with this agency and some of you and some of your predecessors, and of course the staff, there has been tremendous progress. I'll offer for the authority. I remember first coming into the process, desalination. I mean, groundwater desalination plants that you've had now is old hat for you as an agency, but still you've had some representative, very advanced, innovative, not just the infrastructure and the technology, but I think the advancements you've made, as noted, getting the mandated basics done, but also looking at that balance of advancement. So if I may just give you a shout out, if you will, just dovetailing on that. So, but yeah, Director Martinez, maintaining that balance, we have to make our mandates safe water quality as the starting point, but also thinking about what that change and innovation that is appropriate and reflective of your community's needs should look like, what that measure progress can take. Great. Excellent. I think I've come, excuse me, Director Castaneda. We have to check in.
Yeah, I But anyway, I generally agree with everyone. I think that, and it concerns me. I think the mayor brought up a good thing. So many times we put too many things on our plate, and sound real good, but we do get criticized for not executing. And I think that there are, we do maintenance. I think we lowest amount of leaks, and, well under, well under the national. So that's great. We need to continue to do that. Even though that we changed kind of the schedule, the way we were, because we were told, oh, the sky was going to fall. We didn't spend X amount of money every year to use that. I didn't. We have some serious projects, and it sounds like we're getting support from Washington and Sacramento, but we got to execute. I mean, we can't, continue to put all these projects on our list, go out and get money, and and a lot of times, and again, I don't sit at the table, so I don't know. I just, it seems like the consultants drive our project, or our staff should be driving the consultants. We should be demanding things. And again, I don't know anything. This is just my perception. It may be completely off or whatever. But I think that that's really what I would like to see the focus on. I think that, with the communication and the transparency and all the things we talk about, very technical organization with respect to what we do. And 99.9% of them don't care how we make the sausage. They just want to make sure that the sausage is at the market and it's fresh and clean and it tastes good. And that's the same thing with our water. But what they want to know is if we say we're going to repair the dam, we need to have a date and we need to stick to it, barring any kind of short. Now, there have been some, but with respect to recycled water, with respect to, throwing a bit of a curveball with manganese problem in National City, those are all things that we couldn't control. But on the other hand, how long have we been talking about iron and manganese? 4 years. 4 years when Mayor Morrison's predecessor first came on. So I just think that we need to focus on the schedule. We need to, and if it means clearing some of these things off the table until we get done. I'm always, we have room for 3. We don't have a big staff. Let's finish one and then bring another one on. Okay. So, and they're all important. So I can't really get into too much, but that's kind of what I want to focus on this year is getting. I want to, stop applauding the money, and I want to start applauding when we cut the ribbon and turn on a switch. Okay, that's what one.
Very good. Well, in a few minutes, I definitely do want to transition to more of starting to think about, what those priorities look like for all of you too. But Director Martinez, I see you're.
Sorry, Director Martinez, your microphone, please.
I had to point it out. On iron manganese, the project would be probably under construction right now if it wasn't for the huge bid that we got, right? So that's out of the control of staff. And on the dam, the story, right? I mean, the Division of Safety of Dams kept changing the story and increase the scope of the work. There's nothing that we can do about that. And I don't want to go into too much detail. I totally agree with you. We have a lot on our plate. We need to make things happen. Sometimes when you put too much carne asada on your grill, nothing gets cooked, right? It just bogs down. We need to focus on the big things, and we need to work together as a board when we start working towards accomplishments. And we decide to go in this direction, we should all go in that direction. Because it's very distracting to hear negative things, when it makes you lose energy, and I'm glad that we're having this meeting today, and I hope that we have it every single year to make sure that we're all still aligned and pulling in the same direction. You know, when we tell the general manager, you need to execute this by this date, or else, you know, we're gonna put a bad note or whatever. Um, we need to support him. You know, we need to provide the funding. We need to we need to be there with him to make sure that staff is also with him, you know, and that we get these things done so that we can get it done quickly, you know. Solar, recycled water, reservoir, those are the big ones, you know, the multi-year projects and that require a lot of push, and we're all eagerly awaiting its completion. Thank you.
And I just like to add to that, and I agree completely. I'm not pointing the finger at anybody. These are things we need to be proud of.
Good.
And that's what it is. And you know what? I have to say, we were at an engineering operations meeting yesterday. That was probably the most robust meeting that I've been involved in with respect to moving forward on real, you know, important things that we have been working on a long time. And, you know, I felt good. I went home and told my wife, I said, look, we weren't in and out of there in 30 minutes. You know what I mean? We had good conversation. We talked about schedules. We talked about financing. We talked about all these things, and that's going to get us down the field. So that's what I hope we commit ourselves, all of us this year, to basically do that, and not just the people sitting behind the guys.
Good.
So I wanted to.
Well, very good. If I may, I'd love to, unless there's another director would like to highlight another accomplishment, I'd love to take this momentum of starting to look ahead around priorities and move our conversation in that way, if that's okay with you. We're doing just a quick time check. We're doing well on time here. Do let me know as we move into the discussion, perhaps in the next hour or so, if anyone's feeling a little peckish. I think that just a quick check. I think the lunch is around, comes in around
11:30 to 12.
Okay.
It's gonna be
Good. So the food's here around 11:30 to 12, and just to keep our eye on that. So maybe we'll work towards about roughly noon, perhaps a pause point, and we'll see how we're feeling at that point. So if that works for you. So what I would like to do now is move us into that conversation around priorities, what's emerging, what's active. And so let me orient you a little bit, as a recap. Again, just great credit to staff for putting this workbook together. Just to emphasize, it is a workbook. It's just starting today, right? In the next coming weeks and months, as you continue to work with staff on honing in the priorities for the next fiscal. Hopefully this is cool to help you with that. And I think for today's purposes, I wanted to orient you a little bit. Obviously, the first spread is just the big picture, literally that's literally 30,000 feet view, all your objectives. And I just, again, you know, as you probably gather here, the green kind of speaks to being on track. Yellow speaks to some bumps here, some considerations about progress moving forward. And we'll talk more detail about that. But more specifically, I want to orient you in a moment. We're going to start, of course, with water quality. So what's in this workbook, again, are the objectives that you've adopted as part of the current fiscal, right? Fiscal 23-24. So that's what's represented here. Okay. What I'm going to share on the screen with you, go ahead.
Yeah, let me.
Is
No,
everything
go
okay?
ahead, go.
Okay.
Yeah, go
So let me, a little more orientation, and Carlos, please jump in a moment here if we do. But what I want to orient you to is, again, starting with water quality first. In your booklet, again, these are the adopted current objectives. What I'm sharing on screen with you now, staff have put together, this is really kind of their working document, if you will, of looking at what may be potential objectives for the next fiscal. So very specifically here, looking on screen, I'll ask you, on the left side, as titled there, fiscal year 23-24 objectives, those all track with what are in your work, right? What you'll see on the right-hand side as we move through this document are proposed objectives for the next fiscal. And this is the initial take, if you will, from staff about what they, want to offer. And we want to orient you to today and have feedback and reflection from you about what they're initially proposing. And then, and importantly, again, what you're not seeing proposed in specific areas, getting back to some of the topics that we touched on. As we go through each of these goal areas, we'll bring back, the department heads will again give a little bit more orientation. They kind of teased you a few minutes ago, right? About, oh, we're looking ahead to these things. They're going to come back and be even more descriptive about what's kind of being proposed for the next fiscal, to walk through that. And then we want to open up, of course, importantly, and hear from you, answer questions that you have about those details of what may be proposed. And again, importantly, hearing from you about your thoughts about what may be missing, thinking about priorities. If you feel strongly, dovetailing on some recent discussion here, that, you know, maybe there are some things you would have to think about refining, scaling back perhaps, for the benefit of a different priority, for example. So happy to hear that. But yes, please, Carlos.
Yeah, just to, if I may, so we have this on the screen, but we do have our copies if you would like for us to. Well, that's what we have now, and we're handing this out as well. That way you can see what we're proposing as a starting point. Of course, this is the bulk of the exercises to get your feedback on these objectives. We're not looking at the detailed work plan, so we'll come up with the specific tasks. I think the next time we present this to the board is on April 24th, along with a draft version of the budget. That's right, Rich?
That's right.
So just keep in mind that we're looking sort of at the big picture for now. And with that direction, we'll come back and prepare detailed tasks.
Yeah, your objectives really speak to the what you're directing to be accomplished, right? And the how, as Carlos just noted, those detailed tasks, which I know you're familiar with from iterations of the work plan, that'll be a follow-up after today with more specifics to the extent you need more information about what are the steps to make this happen. So, but please, Director, you have a question?
I was just going to ask, are we going to have this is a lot of good stuff now, you know, to get into. Are we going to have like a part 2 workshop or something?
That is up to you. That is up to you.
Yeah, follow my own rules. So I know this is a lot to digest and it's a lot of great stuff. So like I said at the beginning, we're just gonna play by ear, but not feel rushed that we need to finish everything today, but still be productive during our time. And then, I mean, I don't presume we'll be. I mean, I don't want to assume anything, but I presume that we will not finish all today. And but I do want to make some headway in order for us to get the ball rolling. So to answer your question, we probably won't finish today. We'll probably have a part 2, but I do want today's meeting to be productive.
Yeah, at minimum, I to that end, to the chair, I would at minimum starting to get you oriented more. I know some of this is familiar too. Of course, you've adopted these objectives over the years, and there's familiarity and some potential refinements that staff are bringing forward today. And it's really at minimum orienting to what may be for the next fiscal and starting to answer questions you have and initial reflections that, these seem like good, they make sense, or I'm concerned, I don't see anything about X or Y, things along those lines. And that's good feedback for staff at this point about, moving forward to the next iteration, perhaps in another workshop. Of course, at minimum, coming to you formally for consideration adoption for the next fiscal. But Vice Chair, you had a question just on process?
Probably not likely that we're going to get into it, right? There's a lot. It's not like we're holding anything up.
Right.
Work is being done as we fit here already, including it, we might identify things that we might not move up on a priority or as a board, lower priority. It's on here, I hope it's being worked on already.
That's right. Yeah.
We're not delaying. We're just trying to line ourselves up better. So
exactly.
Be more effective.
That's exactly today's start of that conversation. Absolutely. And Director, in a moment, I'd like to get into the content of the material, but I want to make sure just any other process question. Director Yamane, did you have a question about just what we're going to do now? Yeah. Yes. That's right. Yes, that's when an objective first came on. Thank you. Yes, and now's a good opportunity. We can check in today, by the way. If you have questions about why is this an 11-year-old objective, be happy to, I know staff would be happy to answer those questions if needed. But another process point, Carlos, and then I want to move into this.
I'd like to just make a general comment. So what we've done in the past is we update the strategic plan once every 5 years, right? And then in that period of time, we have workshops like this to really modify, you know, fine tune exactly, and then come up with tasks that will be effective the next fiscal year. So we do this exercise also to help us with the budget, right? So if the board is telling us through the strategic plan, we want to do all these things, right? And we just don't have the resources, then we will ask you them for the funds to do that, right? So the strategic plan and the budget go hand in hand. Now, some of these objectives we did identify when they were first brought up, but it doesn't mean that we haven't done them. It's just they have been set as an objective since that time.
Yeah.
Some of these are just continuing. For example, number one, meet all primary and secondary water standards. We're always going to do this, regardless of, you know, if it was started 2012 or really any other year. It's really the main mission.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you,
so I
Carlos.
just wanted to
Good
offer that.
context there. Yeah, thank you. And thank you for asking, Director. Appreciate that. So to that end, let's talk about water quality. And just as a quick highlight, and then I think Justin will come on and talk a little bit about what might be proposed for the next fiscal. But first of all, as some of you I know are familiar, this is really about the core of, you know, your primary and secondary water quality standards, right? That is your absolute first objective. It has always been traditionally, and perhaps I'll dare say probably always will be, right? Flushing, right? Addressing your flushing processes overall. The cross connection, backflow prevention is a key objective in here. The reservoir health overall is an objective that's part of this goal area. Treatment improvements overall, you have an objective focus in that area. And so what we have here, so that's just like quick scan, if you will, of highlights. I'm not going to, don't want to read these objectives to you right now. I know you have them in front of you, but I think that's where I'll ask Justin to just check in and give some more specifics about what you see kind of listed again on the right-hand side of this document, or what might be proposed, and maybe talking just a little bit about that. And I will scroll this on screen for everybody's collective viewing. So for instance, Justin, maybe starting with WQ3, water quality 3, what's kind of the potential evolution of that?
Sure. So the objective is written very specific. To me, it feels more like a task. And so the recommendation in the right-hand column there is to make that more broad. Instead of being, we're still going to track developments in the watershed, right? And make sure we're operating and protecting our environmental resources, but just making it more broad is to manage watershed activities for the beneficial use of the authority operations and protection of environmental resources. And that makes it more broad, and then we can still add work under that. So I think a better descriptor there. And then objective WQ8. So as I mentioned earlier in the highlights for the departments, next week we'll be having our audit for these new laboratory standards. And so the future goal is just like kind of like the water quality objectives to meet all the state and federal standards. Now we're going to make sure we continually comply with all these laboratory standards, which really provide, of course, integrity for the data that we produce that ensures that we're creating water quality that meets all the standards. Right. So the connector there.
Good. Good. So let's pause here and just open up to all of you. Any questions, first of all, on the progress and status of your existing objectives as indicated? And then as Justin just highlighted, the potential updates to a couple of these objectives. Any questions on those? And more importantly, questions on anything you don't see or you're concerned you don't see related to water quality specifically. Director Calderon-Scott, please.
Yes, on the second objective, WQ2, specifically addressing the flushing program. We were the first, as far as I know, certainly in the county, but I think maybe even in the state, that we went to this system. And there's been like trial and error over the last 3 years or so. But I would really like to understand the lessons learned, because we've made a huge investment. And originally, when we looked at price, it was going to be comparable. And there would be an advantage, and we were going to buy this really expensive equipment, and we hope to share in the cost with other districts. Well, other districts it turned out, aren't interested. And I see it as a good thing, a great PR thing, a great, because there's less water waste and all, but it hasn't turned out what it originally. So having a better understanding, like I remember filters turned out to be way more expensive than we had anticipated.
Okay.
And then in buying the equipment, we went back and redid all of National City because that was a good learning area with the new equipment. And I think we just finished National City, so it's great. I don't think you were here when that was reported. We've started Chula Vista, who hasn't been done like in 12 years or so. And it showed like a 22% completion, or
14%.
14, which is really low. And I look that I don't know that we're being realistic and when we're going to finish this.
So we'll
having
need
an
perspective on,
understanding.
where we are in the process.
Because that,
Yeah, so let's come to staff and have.
Can I?
Oh, I'm sorry.
yes, go ahead.
So, I'd like to, so one thing, we have this as an objective, right? The water quality and distribution. And I think the question for the board is, do you want us to continue doing this or not? Right? Should we continue flushing or not? And I think there's a really good opportunity for us as staff to try to come up with a goal that we can meet as far as the detailed work plan, right? So I know that our detailed work plan has been very general. And I think we could say something like, let's try to do 40 miles. I'm just throwing a number, right? Let's try to do 40 miles a year. Is that something reasonable that we could do with the resources that we have, right? And I think that is where we can offer, achievable goals for the board through the detailed work. So I'm just.
So we could consider potentially kind of changing our targets for our progress on the flushing program. Was one initial
Right.
response, but
Sure.
Director, you wanted to also hear more about, a little more detail about, so where are we in that? in the process
Right.
and
Well,
what
it was
can we look-
supposed to have come back to us. This was not under our present GM, but it was supposed to come back to us after 1 year and it didn't.
Okay,
It ended up being after 2 years.
okay.
But we were already into purchasing the equipment. So I
Right.
don't really have a sense for how things get penciled out.
yeah.
And if we were to set a schedule of goals, like I think it's a really good idea. How does that for a capital project or investment? How does that all pencil out? Or do we need to sell the equipment, go back to a consultant, or what?
I think, no, just in the interest of time, we do provide quarterly, I think quarterly updates. We do.
Actually, with the past CIP report that I provided, we actually included an update on the no district flushing through that report. Obviously, it's not being funded through the CIP, but we're trying to combine reporting efforts, and there's an update on non-district flushing, including in that report that was recently provided to the board.
Yeah.
As it pertains to the 14% completion, that's a mean that 14% out of the 100% that we set up to this fiscal year. 14% out of the entire system. When we presented to the board, we said it's going to take about 5 years to the entire system. That's 14% out of the entire system. When you break down the number of miles of pipe that we got to do throughout those 5 years, it comes down to about 75 miles of pipeline per fiscal year. So we've actually done 50 miles already this fiscal year. So we're actually doing okay.
Okay, and then understanding, because before under the traditional way, I think it was recommended that every 7 to 8 years you do it. And so how, when we complete it, does that mean that then the following year we're starting then over, if it's going to take 7 years? Just kind of getting an idea of how that.
Maybe that would, and be happy, I know staff be happy to do a little bit more now if needed, but sounds like clearly it might be helpful coming soon, not the least of which for the next work plan for the next fiscal year, as there will be more specifics on the task that would be undertaken as part of that objective. But more broadly, Director, if I'm understanding right, just a better sense and understanding big picture about yeah, what is the overall schedule that are currently underway? What are kind of the working targets? How do we, what's the frequency when we can expect, excuse me, the board can expect for updates and considerations? So maybe a little bit more, could be an item that staff could bring back to you in an upcoming.
And it could be a good exercise because we started as kind of we have the model, you know, we're creating the model that if we've got a good story to tell there, that other districts could see it.
Okay.
Also, because conceptually we were sold on it. It was a good thing to do.
But like there's information available on it that maybe staff could come back a little more focused on that. Sure.
So I definitely think that we want Flushing to continue to start like after I don't even know how many years. But I do think that it would be really, again, with going back to what Director Calderon mentioned about the consistency in the communication, if we had objectives that were more specific. So when we had our little overview on Valentine's Day, I wrote down for Flushing that we should have more specificity on our goals. And I think that whenever appropriate, I think we do need to add a more, tangible task because that would make all of us be more accountable. It would clarify our, because we had a conversation about why is it 50%, not 100%. It would make everything be more measurable. Mm-hmm. So if when possible. So if we, and I don't know what the answer would be, again, throwing out 50 miles. So I think for 24, 25, I think for like objectives like this, we should be able to state how many miles or what percentage should be completed by the end of the year.
Okay.
So, and I think that should be the standard for all of the objectives whenever possible.
Okay. Very good. Yeah. So at minimum, for example, if Director, Chair, that when the fuller detailed work plan becomes available,
that's the detailed work.
There's specifics under this objective and others about what will be the focus in terms of the targets, obviously within the year schedule, working within the fiscal year, of course, and anything related to the reporting, more specific reporting process and review process. So absolutely, I think so. Like Chair,
the question here is, on the objective, do you want us to continue doing this or not?
Yes.
And then on April 24th, we'll come back with a proposal as to what we think that task should be. Mm-hmm. And I think we have a good understanding based on the discussion that the task should be easy to measure, right? So we could, and if we come to you and tell you, we want to do 10 miles, you could say, well, that's not enough. You need to do 40. So I think what we're going to try to do is given the resources that we have now, we're going to tell you what we think we can do, right? And if you say, or you think, you need to do double, and we'll come back to you and say, well, that's great. We can do double, but we're going to need more resources to do that, right? And I think this is where the discussion really begins to happen to start giving shape to the budget.
So I have a question, I guess. So, Justin, is there an objective here that you would say that you would be comfortable for us to, because I know Dr. Castaneda said that maybe we need to clean things up. And, obviously, the first one, it's always going to happen. But is there an objective here that you would be comfortable saying could leave the plate? For the 24-25?
Oh, for NODA specifically or just generally?
That's on here. We have 57, right?
Yeah, I believe and I don't see it on here. I know there was one objective that I did remove, and it had to do with the lead and copper. I don't see it on here, so I don't understand. Yeah, there was one we removed, and it was to come up with a plan to identify the customer certified meter connections from the customer's meter to the home. There's what's currently called the lead and copper revisions, where we have to identify and confirm whether we have lead or don't have lead on the customer side home. We've already came up with a plan. Oh, I'm sorry. I know. Yeah.
Here, it's considered essential from the director's point, like from you point.
Well, I think this is what the board's instructed us to do. As far as these are the board's priorities, right, for us. And from there, the last meeting we gave a detailed
Yes.
status on mid-year update
Yes.
on those goals.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is, have this discussion to see, I think there's an opportunity to simplify a few of these, and come to agreement, or, well, not agreement in terms of get direction from you as to for next fiscal year, effective July 1.
Okay.
Are there,
Um,
understanding, and Chair, I heard you ask, of course, for your experts to
Yeah.
advise and direct, and that'll continue to happen, of course, but for today's purposes, at minimum, like building on what Carlos was mentioning, do you have initial thoughts or questions about, perhaps in the next fiscal, a specific objective perhaps has a lower level of investment or effort? Or we I just take, for example, since we talked about flushing, flushing is important to us as a board, but you may move down the line and decide, we're comfortable with a slightly reduced pace and investment in that process. I'm just talking for a moment. So I think at minimum for today, Carlos, at least that's part of it too. And Roberto, I know I'd like to get chime in too. If some sense from you or questions or ideas about what maybe that balance could look like, Grant, presuming, that certainly objectives could go away at your direction. But if you have a sense of kind of that level of balance among them, and I want to come to, you want to get in real quick? Please.
I just want to say, I totally agree with the chair that we need more specificity.
Good.
I'm sorry, Director Martinez.
Okay, I totally agree with Chair Martinez Perez that we need more specificity. Okay, we need to be more specific. To take an example, like Bonita Valley Reservoir, right? We talked about that project coming up. I can't find it here, but I know, that it may be in here, but it's not clearly defined. So when you ask the question, Chair, is staff putting up these projects? So our direction under water quality, goal number 1, water quality, says provide high quality water that meets regulatory requirements, right? And then they come back to us, oh, we got to do this at BVR. Oh, we got to do that at Purdue. Oh, we got to do that at DSTOW, right? And then we say, sounds good. You give us the amount, we approve it. And it's kind of like that interaction that we have. I'm not in a hurry to remove any of these items just for the sake of removing it and saying, oh, we're done. When we're talking about, to use the same example of the no discharge flushing, that's a great thing that I believe is, unless we come up with something better, which I don't know how, it's going to be with us forever. In the old days, going way back, I don't know if Mayor remembers how the water used to be dumped into the street. And sometimes some cars went floating and sometimes they were off it. But somebody had the bright ideas of recirculating the water. I think it was more of a need that we had, right? And the appearance of dumping water into the street. We used to do it. We've always done it. We will always have to do the flushing of the mains the old-fashioned way or this new modern, up-to-date way that we're doing it. And I think this is going to be with us. So I think this one item is going to be on this list forever. And I don't see it. And a lot of them are like that,
If I may ask that, Vice Chair, and I do want to come to Director Yamani immediately after, but as we look at water quality, you're looking across these specific objectives. Do you have, sounds like they are all important to you still. Do you have a sense right now of where you are as an authority as to any rebalancing or priority among them?
No, they're doing great, but with the exception that I've heard it from several directors, more specific.
Right.
The specific project, they're on this.
Yes, they're on the.
From prior years that
Yeah.
they give us, where they have all the projects. Maybe it's kind of new and it still hasn't made it up here because I have an older version of
Yes,
it, right?
and you're going to get that.
So I'm going to be looking for.
Yeah, and I think let me ask staff to respond to that and say.
Great input, and we hear you loud and clear on this specificity.
Yeah.
I think we're trying to do this in parts, and the first part is the objective level,
Right.
which or we're trying to make sure that it's broad enough to capture the ideas and values of the board. Then we would go to the next layer of very specific, measurable tasks
Yes.
that are not shown on this, but
Yes.
this is by design, so we can focus on objectives a little bit higher level. So then that staff can come back with specific tasks with a goal, and price tag to it, right? So that we can make actual decisions.
That's a level of detail in that document.
Yeah.
I'm not asking you guys, this is the plan, you come to us for approval of the budget.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
you better get on it. Wanna get it supported.
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Let me come to Director Yamani. She's been waiting patiently.
Guys, we're slowing it down.
No, not at all.
Sorry, Director Yamani, your microphone, please.
Sorry. So, I mean, my understanding is 23-24 objectives. There's WQ8 here. These are all happening every day.
Correct.
And then they're proposing that we focus on those WQ3, and WQ8. The 3 is more like infrastructure, like watershed and stuff like that we have to. So since we're all doing this, if that's my understanding, correct me, and I apologize if I'm slowing everybody down.
No.
These are the 8, because I'm looking at also the last strategic plan here. And these are all still here, right? So we're always doing it.
Right.
That's these 2 that have a more importance.
Just to clarify, no, actually, to clarify, thank you for asking, because there may be other confusion as well. What we have today, literally on this document, we're showing on screen, and I know you received, the right-hand side, those objectives, and in the case of water quality, only WQ3 and WQ8 are noted on the right-hand side, only because they reference some potential revision to those objectives for the next fiscal year. So we look at WQ8 as you look at them side by side, the one on the left or the one on the right. The one on the right represents what might be a revised version of that objective for the next fiscal, pending your discussion and approval, of course. But at the moment, all of these 8 objectives for water quality would probably continue into at your direction, of course, into the next fiscal. Thank you for asking the clarifying question. Sorry for we created confusion on that. So. Right. Yeah, you're
Exactly. No.
right. Yeah. Thank you. So let me thank you, and I appreciate the dialogue and questions about big picture about the direction we're moving in. But I do want to ask too, again, with water quality, where we are here, again across the 8, if there are questions or reflections about, again, your sense right now, so your understanding where you are, where the authority is, the progress and accomplishments we made, but also those priorities for, again, with water quality. Do you have any reflections about what you'd like staff to think about in terms of level of effort? We just talked about flushing, for example, some consideration about status of that effort and level of intensity, for example. Are there other specifics within water quality that you see in these objectives that you have some questions on, or you have some reflections on about moving forward? I see the director tell them.
I know. Director Castañeda referred to our meeting yesterday. We had an excellent meeting and an excellent discussion, and you asked that I think is relevant to your question about whether there's anything we want to take out. So my response is in part yes. And I think we came up with a good idea. We've had this one project that's been going on for maybe, 3-4 years that has come to the end of a road. And that's sand mining. That's not realistic. It could be in the future, but it's not realistic now in that we're at a stop. But there is an opportunity to continue with some of what was within that plan
Mhm.
that, includes dredging, that goes to our water quality,
Mhm.
that, and goes well with the aeration project. But to me, we're really talking capacity restoration. That was the name that our GM referred it to, because it went from, sand mining, which wasn't a popular thing. We saw potential, but it didn't pan out. And so then it went to this enhancement project. But while it was enhancement project, it kept going back and forth to sand mining. So the community really recognized at that. So it was like my suggestion uh, to take away the sand mining because it's no longer relevant and we don't have anybody interested, and then make it a new positive project, kind of move it over, start fresh with a capacity restoration project.
Very good. Thank you. Are there other? Yes, please. Does that fall under water quality, or is it in a different goal area?
The restaurant,
It goes under stick. You can't really see it clearly, but it falls under stick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, but
Yeah.
Director Calderon Scott is suggesting continuing to do it, but with a different focus and a different emphasis, perhaps. So,
Right.
yeah, so it's a good, thank you.
And a greater potential for grants and money, because we could get a lot more support in that direction
Okay.
by just changing the name and the focus and the priority.
And we would see that, right, Carlos, when you
Yeah.
bring in the details one, right?
Yeah.
yeah, so
But
to answer Director Yamana's question, so on the, under objective WQ6, under the detail work on Director Yamana, we do have something that reads, continue to explore the cost benefit of implementing resource recovery in and around authority reservoirs, utilizing a consultant team of experts selected by the. So this one, given the comments and where we are, very likely in the detail work done, we'll propose something different.
Mhm.
That's where that change would be.
There you go. Good. Excellent.
Okay.
Good. Other thoughts as we're here in water quality and these objectives? Any questions of the underlying details? Certainly welcome to see it. But any other, for now, reflections on priorities? Let me come to you, please. I know you've been very thoughtful about kind of prioritization.
You know, I mean, I've been involved. I'm always reminded of the fact that government tries to get into business, it usually doesn't turn out. So I think that, so like the Director Colorado Scott raised the issue of sort of the thought process with respect to the recycle flushing it. Something that would be kind of entrepreneurial, that we could use it for our benefit and with respect to the reservoir enhancement, sand mines, that's never really been my focus. We kind of hope that there would be some revenue generated from it, but really it's always been, a reservoir maintenance program. So I think that every time that we try to get entrepreneurial with something, I think it's a good thing, but that should not be a priority.
Right.
You know what I mean? The priority should be our core business.
Okay.
And that's delivering safe, clean, and affordable.
Very good. And so in that context, is that your kind of initial, the staff go back and think more about the next work plan from your perspective, thinking about how this fleshes out level of effort and investment across those. Yes, Vice Chair.
Yeah. Yes. So I'm in total agreement with what he's saying. The objective was from day one, storage capacity, and to improve water quality by removing all the chemicals that we have deposited over many years around the intake tower, right? So that's a big thing. And beach one day, almost in tears, and I was thinking about my friend. I want to
when I broke, I wanted to do something good and say, hey, we will be responsible for cleaning up the residue. Yeah. We made it better for you.
Bigger and cleaner. Yeah.
Yeah. And if we take things to their logical conclusion, that project, okay, start dredging, and it's like, where are you gonna put all that material, right? That you're gonna take it out, how are you gonna put it there? How it's in it? Right now, economically, not a lot of people are interested. Coming from another country, right?
Mhm.
Historically, it's been shown that there's gonna be a point where somebody's gonna say, oh, I get it from you. But right now is not the time, but right now is the time to clean the reservoir, and we need to continue.
Okay, very good. So kind of, yes,
So
Chair.
just for redirecting, like time's taken.
Yeah.
You know, you can smell it, the food is here. Would it be safe to say then that we all feel comfortable with objectives 1 through 8, that they need to remain here, and then we look forward to seeing the specificity that General Manager and Justin will bring? Like, is everyone comfortable with that? Sorry, I hijacked Andy.
No, I wouldn't, if I may, Chair, I wouldn't suggest it's a motion. Today is just discussion oriented. Yes, the chair hijacked, that is chair's prerogative, so I welcome it. So, but I do agree. I was literally going to go there next and just ask that, if comfortable for now with water quality, I'd love to move us on. And yes, Chair, let me ask the question because the chair did bring it.
Question before you
Yes.
leave that one. I believe 5 says completed. So if it's completed, why do we keep it in there?
I can add something to, okay, I can respond. So a lot of these objectives will continue, only that the tasks associated with that objective are completed. So the question that we're asking the board is, do you want us to continue to have a SCADA system? Right, and if the answer is no, then we have to figure something else in. But I wouldn't advise against that, right? So I try to see the big picture direction that you're giving staff, and then we'll come back and give you the specific tasks that we want you to approve as part of the budget. I think that's kind of what we're trying to head to.
Do you have any questions on the SCADA system to that end?
Yeah.
At this point? Okay.
So
Very good.
if I may, Andy.
Yeah.
The time is 11:46. Could we, and the suggestion, take this next 15 minutes so we can all serve ourselves lunch and continue as a working lunch? Is everyone okay with having a working lunch? Yes?
Good.
So if it's okay, could we
Certainly,
stop
please.
now, get food, and then we'll resume the moment that everybody has a plate in front of them, and then we can continue. Is that okay?
Yeah, or at least by noon at the latest?
By noon at the latest,
Very
everybody
good.
should be back here with a plate.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And maybe Andy, you can serve yourself first because you can't work in.
No, I'm okay. Thank you, though. No,
Okay.
please, all you first, please. Thank you.
Don't be embarrassed.
Back here.
Yes,
Don't be mad.
yeah, don't be embarrassed.
some very subtle and minimal actually. So, but Eric's going to take a few minutes to review those just to walk through them a little bit. Again, we understand, of course, you can read them. We understand that, but can offer a little more context and give you a sense of what might be more substantive, what might be a little bit smaller scale. And Eric, I can scroll along as you talk here. Correct.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. So yes, again, it's mostly just subtle changes that are proposing. For example, with SR1, I think it's the first one that I attempted to do, and I think this one I was trying to be a little bit more specific. So it is still trying to basically follow through on the recommendations from the water distribution system master plan, but the way that it was worded is like implement the recommendations from that plan. Well, we don't necessarily implement everything because of budget constraints. It's basically we implement what the board directs us to do, right? So the language on the right, you can see implement the following recommendations. Not saying that we're implementing everything that comes out of that plan, just the following recommendations, and that it then defines which ones specifically we want to implement based on what will be approved by the board for the budget. Moving down to SR2, that is a complete revised language, but it's not trying to do away what we're trying to do with SR2. The way that the language is proposed on the right hand side of the column is actually currently it's objective SR9. What I'm proposing to do here is that all the tasks that we have under SR2 and SR9, we combine them under one single objective, because the way that it's written at the moment, SR2, it addresses corrosion issues. And so what we had here before with the task, that we had some tasks for example, for a tank project that addressed corrosion under SR2, but if it wasn't corrosion related, we had a tank project under SR9, and then it can become a little bit confusing and difficult for reporting purposes. So it's just basically what SR9 would, what I'm proposing to do, that would now be SR2, but still trying to do everything that's under SR2. So basically combining the two objects under one. With SR3, again, trying to be a little bit more specific, right? So for example, on the left side, it says develop and implement specific infrastructure preventive means and programs, and so on. It's more about performing, not about developing. So we're trying to it sounds nitpicking, but we're trying to kind of hone in down on what we're really trying to do. We're trying to perform infrastructure preventative maintenance, right? So that's kind of the key wording there on the proposed language on the right. SR9, SR4, my bad. SR4, yes. So trying to be a little bit more specific what we're trying to do here. So we optimize our fleet of 95 vehicles. Perhaps we can remove the number if we want to be a bit more vague there, but optimize the fleet and equipment to provide maximum reliability, cost effectiveness, minimize carbon footprint by implementing the green fleet plan, and for compliance with regulatory milestones. So it's still trying to capture what we're trying to do with how the goal was written, but I think it's a little bit more specific as I think that word has been turned around quite a bit lately in the last hour. SR5, I think the key changes there are towards the end, right? And then basically, ensure maximum operational efficiency, per regular dam surveillance inspections in addition to DSOD, because there's some things that can come out of that we may need to do our dams, maybe not a higher priority as things that are conducted by DSOD, but there's some other things that we may need to address as a regular dam inspection program. SR9, I keep saying 9, I don't know why. Yeah, I'm trying to rush it, I guess. SR6, so it's again, the intent of the objective remains, but we want to be a little bit more specific, coordinate. It's not just about reviewing the street improvement plans that we get from the agency. We also want to coordinate with them, right? We want to coordinate street improvement plans submitted by land use agencies to make sure that there's being done in a cost-effective manner, and so on. So just again, subtle changes. SR7, this one's about development. The way it was written is about reviewing plans. We want to maybe kind of shift our way of thinking. It's also about proactively engaging and coordinating with the land use agency, development community, residents, and businesses on public water infrastructure requirements to ensure proposed public facilities meet the authority standards. So it's still trying to capture what we're trying to do, but we're trying to kind of basically, kind of do more, maybe the word, not just review the plans, but also try to, like I said, reach out to the community, right? And try to engage the community. Be proactive, tell the story. SR8, no proposed change there. SR9, again, I mentioned that one. It's not about eliminating that. That would now be SR2 in combination with what was under the tax that were under SR2. And then from the one below SR9, the language, I think for the most part stayed the same, but because we were getting rid of SR9, right, or that becomes SR2, it creates shifts on the numbering sequence. So basically, with SR10 now becomes SR9. Same thing with SR11 now becomes SR10. And then I think there's some subtle changes on SR12 language, which would now be 11, of course, right? We still try to do the operation and maintenance plans, but we want to kind of just throw in some language there that we want to kind of, about the water transfers to make sure that we're, within environmental regulations as well, compliant with those regulations. So
aside from that, as you noted, what's currently labeled SR11 on the right, a little bit of update here on the specifics, as you noted, Eric. Otherwise, those last three are effectively unchanged. They are in the right-hand column, but mostly because their numerology may change.
Correct. So under goal 2, we're not proposing to eliminate the objectives. It's just subtle change in the language to be a little bit more specific about what we want to do.
Combining 2
and combining 2 and 9.
Good. There was a lot there. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate that. There's a lot there. And again, knowing there was a lot on the right-hand column, we just wanted to be intentional in walking through that. Again, some are subtle, some have some significance, but just make sure you had a sense there that about what that level of change. So big picture question, if I may, I'll just anyone who cared to ask any questions about, again, what Eric just reviewed in terms of potential changes, and your closer review about it, meaning behind them, intentionality, or reflections you have about priorities in this around system reliability. Progress we made so far. Yeah, please, Vice Chair.
I mean, Mr. Comment that this reinforces what we've been talking about, that, hey, I mean, running a water district may not be the most exciting thing in the world. It's kind of repetitive. You have to maintain a lot of water mains, a lot of miles of water mains, and all the objectives that you have there. I don't see them changing.
Okay.
It's like you're going to be maintaining your facilities. You're going to be having preventative maintenance. Blah blah blah. It's just forever and ever. Just keeps on going.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, as much as we always like a strategic planner, what can we note is accomplished and done and completed? But Vice Chair, you're referencing a lot of your work represents maintaining, keeping the maintaining foundational system working and running, continuing to elevate, of course, safety and water quality. But yeah, that's fundamental to what you do, and it's harder to check some boxes in some respects. But I know, for example, as we've acknowledged, when we come back, staff comes back with more detailed tasks, you'll be able to certainly get into more of the details of what's going to get done. Yeah. There you go. Never going to be out of business. Yeah. So, Director Yamane, did I see your hand? Did you want questions or comment? It's a lot. Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. So you're feeling good so far about what you're hearing and seems to make sense? Okay. Yeah. Right. Well, I appreciate, not that it matters what I think, but I appreciate, as Eric was pointing out, some nuance of the language is, as a strategic planner, I always leading with the verb. The verb's important, right? Which you lead with, intentionality about develop versus deliver, promote, implement, right? So I appreciate a little shout out to Eric about thinking about them, honing in, what is it we're focusing on. So anyway, but other thoughts or reflections you have on system reliability that you're seeing here, questions of Eric or others on the, what may be proposed here. Okay. Good. Vice Chair, another?
Yeah, no, I'm thinking that the exciting part is going to come when we get into the specifics.
Yes.
This I don't see it changing. But
Yeah.
then when we get into the, yeah.
That's right. Exactly. And again, as we said here today, is really about, the big picture outcomes that you're driving. What is it we're pursuing? The how comes next in the next phase. But are we pursuing the right?
Three more leaks or less leaks
Yeah.
than we were before. And
Mhm.
Is there any change? Do we need to replace more miles? Do we need to allocate more funds?
Right.
But if the leaks are not increasing, that means that we're doing well. And we carry on without having to spend more of the ratepayer resources.
Right. Okay. Yes. Colorado Scott, Director Colorado
Yeah.
Scott.
On FR 11, conservation, I think, belongs somewhere else, and not here. Maybe in the area of communications, public affairs. This is, I mean, we've got to be the one district lowest, where we are, conserving way, even below what the state requires.
Mhm.
And I do think it's a good message, to get out there, in spite of that we don't really so much want our people to conserve.
Mhm.
But put it in the PR, public affairs
Okay.
section,
Okay.
where it goes to rebates and betterments and that. I think that's a better place for it.
Director, you're referring to what's currently on the books, if you will, SR 11, but what might become SR if adopted. So it would be on the right side. So the SR 11 row, Director, you're suggesting the specific item reference there about conservation related to reliability. Let's, for even more precision here, let's acknowledge that happens more on the public relations side, if you will, as opposed to through more technical system reliability.
Grant capital.
Okay, I can clarify that. So I believe just my understanding on this particular one is that conservation becomes a water supply strategy. So when you are basically at your limit of supply, rather than investing in additional water sources, you can also invest in conservation as a way to avoid investment. Now, the other issue about outreach, we can certainly add it as far as conservation. And I think we already do this a lot, as far as, use water wisely and all those messaging campaigns that we have. But I just wanted to there's a subtlety here. It's a slight difference in terms of conservation as a strategy to avoid expenditures in additional water supply. I think that's why it's identified as one of many water supply options.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add from a legal perspective, as part of your urban water management plan and all of the other reports that need to be done with regard to water, use of water resources, that runs through that department. It is all part of the water supply requirement, analysis requirements that the state imposes on local agencies on water supply systems.
Yeah.
That does that because of what he.
To get that.
Okay.
I'm just thinking,
I'm sorry, directors. Microphones, please.
Yeah, I get that. And so, yeah, keep it in there for those reasons.
Good.
I just consciously, we know that we're doing superbly in that area.
So there's good to verify there's a technical regulatory requirement angle to
Yeah.
this. Of course, as acknowledged too, we need to continue as part of our community engagement efforts, and we continue to think about where there. So anything else on system reliability? I'm gonna dare to offer we move on to our next goal area. Certainly, if you think of something else, we can come back. But just because we've left the goal area doesn't mean we're done. So financial viability here. I know very important areas to all of you, of course. They are only two potential refinements here that would come up, and I'm not going to turn it over to Rich just to give you the highlights here of what might be represented, what's represented in these potential refinements here.
So for financial viability, obviously these first two are my areas, and I'll talk about the other ones, but I also do share these objectives with some of the other departments. So the first two were just fairly minor changes that I made. So I think the first one, it mentioned rate setting decisions, and I thought that was included in the second. So I was suggesting to take that out of FB1, where FB2 is really the one that we focus on the rate structure. But overall, it was pretty minor changes that were made in these two. I think obviously the FB1, we're always looking at our financial goals, so it's evergreen. FB2, we did just complete the rate study. Part of that goal, though, is also to utilize the rate stabilization fund. So that would be something that would happen every year. I guess we could consider taking part of the rate function out of this objective until it comes back around again 3 years from now, or it is a pretty high priority. So we would maybe just keep it in there and only modify any specific tasks underneath it.
And Rich, can I ask, just to confirm with FB2, what I'm understanding, really the change you've added in the first 3 words, you've added and maintain, develop and maintain.
Yeah.
Previously. So it's really
Yeah.
now shifting to more of a maintenance
Thank you.
perspective, if you will.
Yes.
If I'm not overgeneralizing.
No, that's absolutely right. I was racking my brain to remember what
Good.
changes
Good,
we
good,
made,
good.
so I appreciate that.
And
help.
sorry, go ahead. I'll let you continue.
Yeah, and then the rest of them are mostly evergreen. Our meters are cash registers, so FB4 I feel is important that we keep that as a goal, as an overall objective. We may have challenges. We probably only have one really specific objective or detail under that in any given year to keep replacing our meters. The one that we probably I'm now looking at possibly saying we could remove. In 2012, this was a very new process where we were regulatorily required to report this to the state. And it was a new process the state was having to do. Now we're in almost 10 years of this iteration. And it's really more of a routine thing that we're required to do every year. So, looking at objectives to take out, this would definitely be it. And then FB6 is evergreen. It covers, a lot of it I think could be considered. Sometimes the recycled water and innovations in those areas fall under, offset the revenue requirements that we have those any specific tasks that might be associated with that. But again, pretty
Good. Thank you, Rich. Yes, please, Vice Chair.
For FP5, non-revenue water, in layman's terms, that means water law. And we have to report it, right?
correct.
I mean, I'm interested in knowing if we're losing 5% or 1% or 15%. I mean, you may not have a problem now, but if you start looking at it and you start losing water, especially like Eric just told us they found 53 leaks, so I wouldn't want to take that one off, but I want to keep looking at it.
Yeah, and we probably would be what we could do is just change it instead of implementing it. We change the wording. Continue to monitor.
Okay, all right, yeah, and I mean, didn't we have a serious issue with a meter at the clear well? That's gonna be fixed here pretty soon. I mean, things like that are the ones that kind of let you know.
Ongoing.
Good. So thank you, Vice Chair, for feedback on that.
What's that? Oh.
So we're going to do a battery switch here as Rich is doing that. I'll drag things out until he gets the battery back. But
We're not leaving his area yet, right?
no, we're not. No, he's not leaving the room. If he leaves the room, we have to stop talking. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Yes, battery replacement. Yeah. But I appreciate. I just wanted to reflect back that. Yeah, thank you for the feedback, Vice Chair. That not necessarily have to go away, but thinking about. And this is good feedback. Rich and team can go back and think about. Well, not doing it the same way we've done before. Perhaps there's a lower level of effort, if you will, in terms of keeping tabs on things and making sure we're not losing sight, as your initial thought is, and what would that look like? So staff can come back and share more thoughts about what that could look like specifically. Is that fair to say, Rich? Did I put you in a hole you can't get out of. Being the facilitator, I can dream up all kinds of stuff, but I want to make sure. Thank you. Yeah. Other thoughts here on financial viability, please. Sorry, Director.
I think in FB2, that we should strike out fairly. Come up with another word that is applicable, that would be positive. But to leave fairly is disingenuous.
Can you share a little bit more of just about perhaps it's a
Well,
little more context for everybody, just so they're hear what you're saying.
I think everyone knows here. We just went through the rates, and I think we made, and I complimented our staff for the gain that the slight gain that we made towards getting there. I think we still fall short, and I mean in 2010 we were at 30 of the fixed cost, went down to 13. Now we're looking at going to 16, 19. But the industry, is saying 30 to 50. And so, I mean, to be unusually low like we are, I don't think we've earned, to be able to stay, fairly, because the way that it's set up in the tiers, it's not, it's not fair to everyone. I think we made progress, but I think we need to be honest about it. I don't know what other word,
Okay.
Yeah. And like affordable, we had that in our mission. There was always, no, we can't have affordable. And over the decades, you dealt with that. It's one of those words, whether it's affordable or fairly, that we really have to be sensitive to.
Understanding interpretations and expectations around that, but please, yeah.
I don't disagree that maybe removing fairly and stay in accordance with Prop 218. And that covers everything, right?
Maybe if I may, it says meets all legal requirements, promotes water conservation, and legally apportions cost centers to meter and commodity prices. Because I mean, we are, after all, bound by the law. So, well, that would be legally. Yeah.
I don't know if you want to be more specific.
No, I don't want to be more specific. No.
Director, does that make sense? Thank you. Does that make sense, Director, about what that could be?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and again, today we're of course having the conversation of exploring ideas. We're certainly not taking firm direction today, or action, I should say, to clarify. But this feedback is helpful, and staff can bring that back. But did you have
and last item that I have is that deals with a non-revenue water program.
Yeah.
That's going to be, a component, a new program moving forward. And so we have really a lot to do, to establish an account, to set it up, so a lot more specific. On that one, because we don't want to start.
Yeah.
Yeah, because once you give something, it's hard to then stop it, take it away. And so we have to do it, we have to do it right.
Good.
So looking at other models statewide, setting some goals for,
Good. Good. Other thoughts on questions or feedback or reflections on, please, Director Yamani. 5 about the non-revenue water program. Yes. Good. So yes, another example where you can look forward to the specificity. And we'd love to hear all of you stumble over it. Director Calderon Scott, did you have one?
And actually, I forgot about this one. Recently, we did get the 20-year projections. for the 20-year capital investment projection. In fact, I made copies, so I'll get those to Leah. But I think it's important to get an understanding of this because it it also is not really real specific. And I know that like through 2029, that we would have 132 million in project. Well, obviously we're not going to be, that's like a super pie in the sky and all. So coming up with a 20-year plan that at least kind of gives us a little bit more idea, like say first 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, what that might look like, that might be more realistic, that has the kind of the view, the board's kind of perspective, so that we could look at it and say, I think it'll give us the sense for those longer term infrastructure, whether it's maintenance or new projects or how they fit into a 20-year plan.
Very good. Thank you. Director Yamane?
I'm sorry, Director Yamane, your microphone, please.
Michael, I'm so sorry. I see them in the dashboard.
Yes.
Presentation class. So, all the CIPs are there. The status. So I don't know where we will put that in. Is that correct, AGM, GM?
The CIP dashboard?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, and let me,
Yeah.
yes, I think so. And let me, if I may,
Go ahead.
I think that if I can circle back to Director Calderon Scott for position, and make sure I understood it, and then we can come back. But you're just kind of raising awareness. You'd like everybody, as always, to continue to think. This is a very, very long view, but has significant fiscal implications for the organization, of course. And just making sure we have this very front and center on our radar, if I may.
Yeah,
Is that
we reviewed our water resources master plan. And so that has all those wonderful potential projects. And so, in looking at that, anytime you're looking at infrastructure, you're really talking long term.
good?
So,
Yes.
how they fit in. So anything that gets into the strategic plan
Is linked to, absolutely. So I think that thank you, Director, for clarifying. So Director Yamane, does that make sense? I think that Calvin Scott just wanted to emphasize it's important you're all, at the risk of understating it, keeping abreast, keeping aware of that. And as you noted, the dashboard helps to give you one view of that and way to track that. But forgive me, Carlos, I interrupted you. I knew you wanted to respond. Did that cover things? Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying. Anything else on financial viability before I move us to our next? Well, then let's talk about customer service, citizen engagement, and community relations. And I think this brings us to the. It's 12:31. We're doing well on time. We are, just as a quick to that end, we will be ending by 1 o'clock, about 12:55. I'll turn it back to staff for talking about next steps. So just to give you an update on timing, but I appreciate your focus here. So Leslie, please.
So some of these are a combination of customer service, but also the public affairs section. So I can speak to the ones under my purview, and also some of these are with finance and purchasing. But you'll see under objective CS2, automated meter reading infrastructure, as we mentioned earlier. So we bring this item forward to the board in April to the committee, and then to the full board on April 24th for consideration and implementation of AMI. And looking forward, it's really how we want to go into funding this project. Researching and funding grant opportunities is going to be a key for us to make this a good return of investment on the cost associated with this project. So that's where customer service team will be focusing its energies over the next year to find those funding sources for the group.
Oh, sorry. CS3, explore and implement. I do kind of have like mine kind of scattered throughout every single goal. So CS3, explore and implement process improvements to better serve developer customers. Really no proposed change there. Something we, it somehow also ties back to the one that I had on SR. I forgot the specific number, but it was about the review of the development plans. We're trying to, engage the community as well. So maybe there's a little bit of overlap there, but it kind of, it covers that as well. That we want to just, like the chair said, kind of get out of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to weigh in on a few of these, Chair. So I think CS5, this is something that was put on hold. This is the well beautification project. I think the idea is to bring this back to the board for further consideration. So we have this as pending. And then, yeah, so CS5, Dr. Morrison, the well beautification project. This is a study done by KTUNA to yeah. So that's what this one is. However, once we learn how the cost, I think there was a bit of a pause to implement or not. We are planning on bringing this to the board to see if this is something that you still like to consider. If not, we can remove it or maybe add a little more specific tasks to this one. And then CS7, the Citizens Advisory Committee has been paused or suspended for the time being. We have the Community Advisory Work Group that took place in terms of the CAC, the Citizens Advisory Committee. So I think there's an opportunity to maybe reframe this particular objective. So I just wanted to make note of this specific objective.
And then any other reference to CS4 and CS8?
The changes to CS4 really is to focus on, I guess, those achievable goals and what the authorities, what our function actually is. I removed small and disadvantaged businesses out of there. Any small and disadvantaged business that is local, we would be trying to bring them in. And a lot of times, small and disadvantaged businesses for cities and other large government agencies that do a lot of federal contracting, they're required to have small and disadvantaged business programs. We have a fairly small shop. We don't do federal contracting, so we've never been set up to do and track small and disadvantaged businesses. And so my recommendation was to really focus on what our capabilities are, to focus on local businesses, no matter who they are, and change the goal to really focus more on that, what we do and what we're capable of, instead of expanding it to a larger program that we don't have the skills in-house at this point.
Mm-hmm. And CS8, I see there's largely the same. There's a little bit of additional detail there, literally on the end of that objective.
That is correct, Andy. So basically everything that written as this is we were proposing that it remains, but adding at the end, any compliance with authority and regulatory policies. And we think that's important language because, for example, as it pertains to trails, a Sweetwater Reservoir, it's a drinking water reservoir, right? They have to comply with regulations from the Division of Drinking Water. So that's why we added or proposing that additional language.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So want to open up to Carlos,
yeah,
please?
just one last one on CS9. I think Director Calderon Scott, I think your previous comments, I think it might be appropriate to enhance this particular objective with more conservation information. I'm thinking about developing marketing and education programs that encourage customers to trust and drink tap water, but also promote conservation when the time is right. We're in the middle of a drought. I think that's really relevant to enhance this particular objective. So I thought I mentioned that, given your previous comments.
Yes,
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
that's
So
correct.
to that end, opening up and want to hear from you, different potential updates here that staff are offering to you for consideration, questions or clarification on what staff have brought forward. Yeah, please, Director Calderon.
Regarding small local business,
Yes.
We did go through some good trial and error there, and I think it's probably where it needs to be. right now. But in the reporting, I do think it's important, everything should be measurable. That really lets us know if we're doing a good job or not. And so I think that that's an area that could be improved. What gets reported out is the dollars that we contracted out with known local businesses. But I've never been able to get yet what the total number of our purchases and contracts are, because how much business we're doing with locals could be measured against that, so that from year to year that we could see. So while something might sound good where we say we did 700,000 in work by our local small business, that might be less than 0.5% of the total work.
Okay.
So I think that that's something that's easy to do and that we should do.
So we'll ask staff to think about if there's some different ways of how that reporting can be reflected, some different
Right.
kind of
Yeah,
clearly.
and at the time, I remember when I asked for that, it based on our software and what we had, and where there were different pockets where things came from, it was more difficult. So I don't know where we're at with that.
Okay.
But I think that would help everyone, like every department head, anyone that's involved in purchasing, that they're able to really follow, that we have a shared system that they could all see when they're making purchases, that we're more aware of the actual business we're giving our local ratepayers.
Very good. All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Other reflections here about this area? Yes, please, sir. Yamani. Of course. Yes.
From the value, we want how many were raised? Is that
Yeah.
okay? This is the amount. This is the number of payers that were ratepayers that were. That was the guide. Okay.
Or it could be the dollar value, but what percent is that of the whole?
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. Other questions or thoughts about kind of priorities in this area that if you want to share at this point about again what your please share.
For CS7,
Yes.
could we just keep promote citizen engagement and then delete? Oh yeah, that's the word. Just remove the rest of it, and that way it leaves it broad enough that when the detailed plan comes, like we're not putting ourselves in a box. Is that could we do that? Yeah.
Okay. Good. Very good.
And I'm okay with CS5 being in the books, just to re-explore it, but not committing to it. So I don't know if that means that we should remove it so it's not officially in the strategic plan, or I don't know. Yeah, I'm like, what would make the most? Does it need to be here for us to talk about it?
Or do you plan to bring it back?
CS5.
We're gonna bring this back. We're gonna bring this back, Chair.
So can you give it a-
Yeah, so
more
Alberto
explanation.
Delgado, some time ago, I think probably, I want to say early 2021, there was an effort, there was a consultant hired, KTUNA, to look at all of our facilities like wells, tank sites, and come up with a recommendation to beautify them. So it was quite a bit of effort. They came up with some suggestions like doing,
It's
just
like an art
yeah,
installation.
just different options, like make them look nice. You walk by a well field out, I think there's one by here, 4th Avenue, I think. And people look at it, the community will look at it and say, "Oh, that looks really nice." Which, but then at the price that came in, then it was pretty expensive. And I think that's where we took a little bit of a pause, or the board did. So this was discussed or brought up. I think Director Castañeda brought it up recently. Was to bring it back for the kind of give it another look by the board and see if this is something that you like to do, or maybe we just put it to rest, or maybe not. Maybe we just become a little more engaged on this and trying to make something happen as far as these facilities.
Let me insert one thing before any reflection. Carlos, so you anticipate bringing this back to the board before adoption of the next work plan? Or
And we have the study, we can revisit what the consultant did and bring it back for the board's consideration.
I think it's a good idea, so we can decide beforehand whether we want to keep this on here or it could be something that goes.
Yeah,
Okay, great.
absolutely. Thank you.
Good. Director Delgado, excuse me, Director Castaneda. I wanted to ask Director Delgado, does that make sense? I mean, you want a clarification? Any reflection on it, or are you? Okay, very good. Sorry, Director Castaneda, thank you.
Yeah. I'm feeling that if I'm the one who started this, I feel like Dr. Frankenstein, because the thing became a monster. We had a couple people on this board that wanted to renovate pool sites and all kinds of different, half of our one of our member cities. And that's where I think we got to the point where sticker shock and just unaffordability. Quite frankly, I think we could probably use about 10% of the study that we've done. You know, all I really wanted was to look at some decorative fencing and maybe, you know, get the local school to paint a mural on the cinder block building or something, just so it doesn't look like Stalin 13.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think it's
I don't know
just,
what
you know, it's an issue that I think the people that live next to these facilities would appreciate. That's all. You know, I'm not asking for.
We should pay you the consulting fee.
Van Gogh, well.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
anyway.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for the additional context. No, I appreciate that because I know it's clarification where this, I do want to see if we can move to, did you have something else?
I
Dr. Calderon?
want to just add to that, to echo what you just said. And what I envisioned, like even for this building out there, is that we should really look like we know what we're doing, that everything that's out there look, what do you call it? Anyhow, water, all the, what are the terms I'm going, like we're conserving. If you go to County Water Authority, for example, you see, and it makes sense. They're doing everything right. And here it's just sort of like we have a mixture of stuff that, you know, we have the best face possible.
Okay.
And I did have another item.
Sure, please, before we move on.
On
Yeah.
AMI.
Yes.
And that was, I think, number 3. I do think that that's a thing of the future and that that's something that we need to look at serious. But from where we left off with that, as far as I know, in terms of giving board direction, is that everything was contingent on a $10 million grant that we went after. And so we never really came to an agreement. If we didn't get the grant, which we didn't, what do we really want to invest in, you know, into the future? Because at that time, we were looking at just like the meters was around 20 million.
Right.
And that didn't really include a number of things like, you know, implementing it and so forth. So I think we need to look at it more in its entire, you know, what does the board see us doing? Because we never approved a program.
All right.
We approved going after grants.
It's CF2, right? Or sorry, you said CF3. Yeah, CF2. So, so based on what's kind of proposed and what might be staff may recommend in terms of revising this objective, is it in line with where you're going?
Or? Really got a financial analysis or.
So this would be to apply for grant funding is what the proposed revision.
I can clarify that. If I may.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the new language is on the right. Effort, you know, shifting more specifically to say, let's research and apply for grant funding to give more shape to what is within out there, say within the realm of feasible for implementation. Okay.
I'm sorry, Director, your microphone, please.
Oh, because I wasn't speaking. But I just, that's what I understand, and it's up there, and I understand we're doing that. but it does show in other documents as though we're doing it, and I find that, confusing.
Okay.
Yeah, so just a minor clarification on Director Costa. So we did apply for a grant, we did not get it. We met with the Bureau of Reclamation and got feedback as to why we didn't get the grant. And they said, well, you don't have a feasibility study, right? So I think that's, Leslie referred to this a bit ago. I think once we present the feasibility study, to the board, I think that this is a really good opportunity to, get this direction. We just think that based on the process, applying for a grant with a feasibility study makes more sense. It gives us a greater chance of getting funding. Right.
Yeah.
So that's where we are now. So, my recommendation would be to just keep it here and it will be brought back to the board for further discussion and direction.
Okay.
I would.
That's
Yeah.
okay. That's
That's-
clarity.
Well, in fact, if you look at the state of California, while this current iteration of the water conservation and auditing rules doesn't move forward just because it's not doable, we will have some sort of requirements that's going to require some sort of AMI, just current way we do it. Which that decision will get made for us if we don't do something.
Good. I'm going to go ahead, if I may, I'm going to dare, we have just a few more minutes, and Chair, I'm going to see if we can do maybe a quick run through. I don't want to rush it, but with workforce development, and the only reason I'm suggesting it's because, quite frankly, there's very minimal specific proposed objective changes at this point from your staff. And I do want to confirm, maybe just looking, I think starting with Leslie, or maybe this is fully you, Leslie, just any other context here about the nature of what might be proposed for next year?
No, I mean, a lot of these goals, similar to others department heads have mentioned, these are things that we're doing. They're kind of ongoing initiatives for us. So we would break down more specific within the task. The only thing of note on objective WD6 is adding the term belonging, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. That's more on trend with what we're seeing in industry right now, and making sure that's a part of the outreach and training that we'd be doing with employees. So that one word was added specifically just to clarify that objective.
So I know, of course, you'll be, as with all the all the goals and objectives, you're looking forward to more details. That will be our next step. Specificity, that's the next workshop. It's going to be the specificity workshop. But in all seriousness, I think we can take our last few minutes just to take your temperature. Any questions or thoughts about the collection of objectives in workforce development? Any clarification you want to ask or reflections about your priorities for the next year when it comes to workforce development? And again, I do want to know, we're of course going to be back to you to talk more in detail. I don't mean to rush us through this, but I thought I'd just take our last.
It's good. I feel like we kept talking about succession planning, we're worried about, who's gonna come in next, but there was nothing specific yet, again. So this is great. Like, we're actually putting into writing what are the things that we're going to do in order to help alleviate that problem that we keep talking about, but we haven't quite maybe cemented what we're gonna do. So
Right.
I appreciate that being added.
Good. Other thoughts or reflections on, yes, please, Director Cotto.
Just one quick one. But bilingual. I know we have, well, not exactly a program, but where we do have employees that are bilingual, and we give them a little extra pay when they use it in their work, in the area of work that they do. But I, as a board member, I'm only more familiar with like public affairs, that area, but I have no idea how we look in terms of having the appropriate number of bilingual employees in all of our departments that need it, that would benefit from it. So I would find that very helpful, so that if we're deficient in any of the departments, that could be a goal.
Okay.
And I think we could support that need, because our ratepayers are
Very good.
a huge number are Spanish speaking only.
Right. Very good. Thank you. Thank you for that. I know staff will be happy to come back and talk in a little more detail about. Good. Anything else on workforce development? Well, thank you. We are right at time. I'll offer, I'm going to turn it back over to your general manager and the chair to talk about next steps. But I just want to thank you for working with the format. Appreciate it. We got through a fair bit. I know I know it was an expectation. Oh, this will be a second day, but I want to appreciate you for generally weighing in where you have the need. I mean, your prerogative as board members is important for your role, but I also appreciate your relative efficiency and thoughtfulness about it as well. It just helps to keep a productive session. But let me turn it over. Well, thank you. No, I appreciate it. You're a great group to work with. Thank you. But let me come to Carlos, please, and share.
So we still have a couple of goals left to discuss. What will be your preference? To just continue and providing general remarks or come back at a later time? It's really up to you. Sure. Yeah, we can. So your direction is to defer this workshop to the next meeting? Regular meeting. Yeah, on the 13th. Sure.
Yes. Yeah.
We're not going into the weeds, then.
Yeah, okay.
So it would be, we'll see. Well, I'm happy to help.
We'll talk to him. Can we?
Well, thank you. You're like, oh, you just want this. I'll be photo reducing it and including. Absolutely.
Michael, can we go back to the presentation? I just wanted to go over next step.
Sure.
You don't mind, or you have, oh, thanks, Andy.
Make sure I have to do the proper screen sharing. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so as promised, we'll get additional feedback on the last two goals at the next regular meeting on the 13th. And then on the April 24th meeting, we'll bring a draft work plan, detailed work plan for your consideration. And then on the 15th, as was reported at the last finance administration meeting, well, the one prior, there'll be a board budget and strategic work plan workshop. So we'll have another opportunity to discuss the specifics along with the budget. And then if the board's ready to adopt the budget and the strategic work plan on June 12th, we'll do so. And if not, we have another opportunity in June 26th. So this is
The fourth one?
Mhm.
It's gonna have all the specifics in it?
Yes, that's the detailed work plan.
It's gonna have a moderator, right?
We were not planning on it. We
Count it again? Or are we not gonna go down it again?
it's up to what the board wants. That is just a regular meeting.
We have a workshop instead?
Sure.
Based on previous version?
Sure.
Moderate. Otherwise, it's gonna go like this, you know, and we're making really good progress.
Yeah, sure.
Good like this, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you need until the 24th in order to do, you need a time. So maybe we can look at like fundraising. So
Sure. Early May.
whatever works
Mhm.
for you to have it be done, and then for us to be able to guide it.
Yeah. Okay.
So we can. But for sure, we're gonna do both 6 and 7 next week.
Okay. Well, that's really all I have. Really.
I think we could, that closes the workshop. Chair, we can turn back to you to.
Any further comments from
Oh, sorry, yes.
Sure.
Any other comments on next steps? Question?
Good?
And there, we can turn back to you to end the proceedings, Chair?
Good job.
Oh.
Okay, so please directors come, we'll go quickly, the director will go back. Just, thank you.
Sure.
Great work. Yeah.
I'm so sorry, directors, please, microphones.
I just thanked everyone, the team that put all this together, that it was a great job.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for putting this together, for keeping on time, and I look forward to
workshop.
Director Morrison?
Ditto.
Director
Very well pleased, very professional, very effective. Let's not forget to do this next year. And let's finish this effort that started really well. Without cutting corners. You know, I know that we have busy lives and all that, but we need to put the work in and then back off and let staff do the work, you know.
Director Yarmani?
I'm better educated. Thank you.
Director Castaneda? Great. Good job, everybody. We're only at the beginning. Remember, this is going to take us all the way to June. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Meeting adjourned.